The night in Hokwood Hills was calm, as usual. The stars shone brightly in the clear sky, and a gentle breeze whispered through the leaves of the trees. However, this peace was abruptly interrupted by a desperate bark echoing through the neighborhood. Max, the adorable golden retriever belonging to the Wilkins family, was in a frenzy, jumping and barking at the window. Clara, awakened by the noise, turned to Tom, who was still asleep beside her. "Tom, wake up. Max is acting strange again," she said, her voice tinged with growing concern. Tom, still half asleep, rubbed his eyes and replied, "What's wrong with him? You know he sometimes gets agitated at night." "It's not just that. He seems terrified." "Let's see what's going on," Clara suggested, getting out of bed. Tom followed her, and together they descended the stairs, the air heavy with worry. When they reached the front door, Max was on the porch, pulling on his leash with force and staring toward the street as if trying to urgently communicate something. "What do you see, boy?" Tom asked, crouching to pet Max's head. The dog looked at him with wide eyes and continued barking, pointing toward a truck parked at the end of the street with its lights off. "That doesn't look right," Clara murmured, her gaze fixed on the vehicle. "We should call the police. Something's not right." Tom agreed, pulling out his phone. "Yeah, let's do that. It could be dangerous." While Tom dialed emergency services, Clara watched Max, who now seemed even more agitated. "Max, stay here. We'll handle this," she said, trying to calm him. When the call connected, Tom explained the situation to the operator. "Yes, there's a suspicious truck on our street. Our dog is agitated and seems to sense something is wrong." After receiving instructions, Tom hung up and looked at Clara. "The police are on their way. I hope it's nothing serious." Clara nodded, but unease continued to grow inside her. Max kept pulling on the leash, and the tension of the night hung in the air like an ominous warning. Officers John Miller and Miley Davis exchanged worried glances as they prepared to open the door of the suspicious truck. Clara and Tom Wilkins, still in shock, stood silently nearby, with Max barking frantically at their side. The tension in the air thickened, and the night's darkness seemed to deepen as the situation became more serious. "Ready?" Miley asked, holding her flashlight firmly. John nodded, and together they pushed open the truck door, which creaked unsettlingly. As the door swung open, a horrifying scene was revealed. The stench of decomposition was almost unbearable, and the officers stepped back momentarily, absorbing the gravity of what they were seeing. "My God," Clara murmured, covering her mouth with her hand. Tom, beside her, stood frozen, unable to react. The mutilated bodies were grotesquely piled, a display of brutality that seemed straight out of the darkest nightmares. "We need backup immediately," John said, his tone grave and resolute. He grabbed his radio and began calling for reinforcements. Miley, still regaining her composure, started examining the scene for clues. "Clara, Tom, what did you see before calling the police?" she asked, trying to remain calm. We just heard Max barking and saw the truck parked there. He seemed agitated, like he knew something was wrong," Clara answered, her voice trembling. Tom supported her. "Yeah, and he wouldn't stop pulling on the leash." Meanwhile, Max continued his restless behavior, running back and forth as if trying to lead the officers somewhere. "What's with this dog?" Miley asked, glancing at John with a puzzled expression. "He seems to know something." "Maybe he's trying to show us more," John suggested, approaching Max, who stood still and looked at him with bright eyes, as if pleading for attention. "Let's follow him. We can't ignore what he's trying to tell us." Max started running toward the back of the truck, and the officers, followed by Clara and Tom, went after him, unaware that the true depths of horror were yet to come. The investigation had begun, but the shadow of Ivan Labouche already loomed over Hokwood Hills. As the night enveloped Hokwood Hills in a shroud of mystery and tension, John Miller and Miley Davis gathered around an improvised table at the crime scene. With the glow of flashlights illuminating their worried faces, John began recounting the findings so far. "The bodies we found are tied to recent disappearances. We need to understand where they came from," he said, his voice filled with determination. Miley, her expression tense, added, "This is just the tip of the iceberg. If Ivan Labouche is behind this, we need to act fast before he disappears again." Looking at Max, who remained restless beside the officers, she noticed a spark of alertness in the dog's eyes. "Max, do you sense something?" she asked, crouching to his level. The golden retriever, who had become a central figure in the investigation, seemed more focused than ever. He started circling, pausing occasionally to look toward the forest bordering the town. "I think he's trying to show us something," John observed, quickly standing. "Let's follow him." As Max moved forward, the officers followed closely, paying attention to his behavior. The dog stopped at the forest's edge, staring at a specific spot. "Here, it seems like he's found something," Miley remarked as she approached. Carefully, they began examining the area and soon discovered a small clearing where the vegetation had been disturbed. "Look at this," John exclaimed, crouching to inspect the ground. "Tire tracks. This could be a lead." He pulled out his notebook and began jotting down details. "If we can trace the vehicle, we might have a chance to catch Ivan." However, a shadow of doubt began to creep over the team. "What if we have a traitor among us?" Miley asked, looking at John with concern. "We can't trust anyone until we know who's really on our side." As they discussed, Max started barking, breaking the tense atmosphere. He ran toward a bush as if he had found something. "What is it, Max?" John asked, quickly moving toward the dog. As they approached, they discovered a torn piece of fabric that appeared to belong to one of the victims. "This confirms we're on the right track," Miley said, adrenaline surging. "We need to move quickly but carefully. We don't know what Ivan is planning." The tension mounted, but the team's resolve grew stronger. With Max leading the way, they were ready to follow the trail, prepared to face any challenge that lay ahead. The hunt was just beginning, and the night in Hokwood Hills promised more surprises than they could imagine. The air was thick with tension as the team of officers prepared to investigate the new lead. John and Miley, still shaken by the gruesome discovery in the truck, knew every second counted. The revelation of a possible traitor among them made everything riskier. They headed to an abandoned shed where new intel about a rescue had been confirmed. "John, are you sure we're not being watched?" Miley asked, her eyes scanning every shadow. The fear was palpable, but their determination to save another victim outweighed the apprehension. "We need to act fast, Miley. If the informant is working for Ivan, we can't risk anyone else suffering," John replied, his voice grave and resolute. As they approached the shed, an oppressive silence engulfed them. Max, the golden retriever, seemed to sense the heavy atmosphere, remaining more alert than ever. His ears perked and his gaze fixed on the entrance. "Let's do this carefully. Miley, you take the lead. I'll cover the rear," John ordered, as Max positioned himself beside him like a loyal sentinel. As Miley pushed the creaky door open, a scream echoed from inside. "Help!" The voice was faint but clearly desperate. John and Miley exchanged determined looks and rushed in. What they found was a young woman tied to a chair, despair etched into her face. "We're here to help you," Miley said quickly as she rushed to free the woman. John scanned the surroundings, alert for any suspicious movement. However, before they could complete the rescue, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man with a wicked smile. "Did you really think you could catch me so easily?" The informant, who had seemed to be an ally until then, revealed his true intentions. The air was thick with tension as he pulled out a gun. "Don't do it," John shouted, feeling his blood boil. But the traitor had already planned his escape and, with a swift move, launched a series of false trails before disappearing through a side door. "He's gone," Miley exclaimed in frustration. "We need to go after him, John." "Max," John called, and the dog immediately sprang into action, following the traitor's scent. Max, with his sharp instincts, seemed to know exactly where to go, leading John and Miley down a narrow path between the sheds. "He's heading to the park," Miley said, panting. "If we can catch him before he blends into the crowd, we've got him." "Let's go, Max." "Faster," John urged the dog, who ran with determination, nose to the ground, as if on a mission. John's heart raced with the adrenaline of the chase, but his concern for the rescued young woman still lingered in his mind. If they could just capture the traitor, perhaps they could discover Ivan's hideout. The chase through the park was just beginning, and the anticipation of a confrontation grew with each passing moment. Max, with his natural instincts and unwavering loyalty, guided the officers, while the traitor's shadow moved further ahead, leading them to a crucial point where justice could finally prevail. The night in Hokwood Hills was steeped in palpable tension. John and Miley positioned themselves strategically among the shadows of the trees, their hearts racing in anticipation of the impending confrontation. Max, the golden retriever, stood beside Miley, his keen senses tuned to every movement around them. The rustling leaves and the distant hum of engines heightened the adrenaline in the air. "Do you think he'll show up?" John murmured, his voice low and anxious. "If Max's instincts are correct, yes. He's coming. And he won't be alone," Miley replied, checking the gun in her hand. "We need to be ready for anything." Max, as if understanding the gravity of the situation, looked up at Miley with unusual focus, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. The dog seemed restless, and at one point, he let out a low howl, signaling that something was about to happen. John and Miley exchanged worried glances. Soon, the sound of engines grew louder, and the silhouette of a truck appeared on the road. The vehicle stopped abruptly, and armed men began spilling out, surrounding the area. "It's happening now," John whispered. The two officers moved with precision, positioning themselves to ambush the criminals. The plan was simple but risky: capture Ivan Leboucher and dismantle the drug exchange taking place. Adrenaline coursed through their veins as they waited for the right moment to act. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Ivan appeared, towering and surrounded by his henchmen. "Where's the money?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the night. Then, in an unexpected turn, Ivan spotted John and Miley. "Cops, shoot them," he ordered, and gunfire erupted instantly. Miley dove behind a car, shielding herself from the crossfire, while John tried to find a clear shot at Ivan. But Max stole the spotlight. With incredible speed, he charged toward Miley, who was about to be attacked by one of Ivan's henchmen. In a heroic act, the dog leapt, biting the man's leg and throwing him off balance, sending him crashing to the ground. "Max, good boy," Miley shouted, her heart swelling with gratitude and admiration. "You saved my life." Taking advantage of the distraction, John fired at the fallen henchman while the rest of the police team joined the fray. The battle was intense, but Max's loyalty proved invaluable. Amid the chaos, he moved swiftly, helping to disrupt the criminals and keeping them off balance. Finally, in a decisive move, John managed to subdue Ivan, snapping handcuffs onto his wrists. "You're under arrest, Leboucher," he shouted, the thrill of victory beginning to take hold in his mind. However, as the tension from the confrontation began to dissipate, a new concern emerged. The traitor who had sabotaged the previous operation was still at large. The victory felt bitter, and any sense of relief was overshadowed by the reality that the fight was far from over. Tension hung in the air like a heavy cloud as John and Miley prepared for the next operation. The traitor, a former partner of John's now aligned with Ivan Leboucher, seemed to have infiltrated the police's inner workings, and the sting of betrayal cut deep. John looked at Miley, his eyes reflecting a mix of determination and worry. "We need to be ready for anything." "He knows our tactics," John said, his grave tone resonating. Miley nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Max will be our advantage. He can sense when something's wrong." Max, the golden retriever, stood by their side, his golden coat gleaming under the moonlight. He seemed aware of the gravity of the situation, his eyes alert and focused. "Let's go, boy," Miley murmured, stroking Max's head. The dog responded with a gentle wag of his tail, as if ready for action. The team positioned themselves at an abandoned warehouse where the traitor was reportedly meeting with Ivan. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. "Remember, if anything goes wrong, Max could be our best ally," John said, glancing at Miley. She agreed, her heart pounding. With a signal, the team moved in. Max led the way, his sharp instincts guiding him as he sniffed the air. Suddenly, a noise echoed from the back of the warehouse. "He's here," John whispered, and everyone braced for the confrontation. Max, in a moment of pure bravery, began advancing, barking fiercely. The traitor, caught off guard by the sudden approach, tried to flee. No, he won't get away again," John shouted, chasing after him. But it was Max who, with an agile leap, lunged at the traitor, knocking him to the ground. The man groaned, struggling to free himself from the dog's grip, but Max held firm, refusing to let go. "Great work, Max," Miley exclaimed as she moved in to restrain the traitor. Fury and betrayal were etched on the man's face as he was immobilized. "You'll never stop us. Ivan will always be one step ahead," he shouted, his voice filled with desperation. "No matter how far you run, there will always be someone willing to fight against evil," John replied firmly as he snapped handcuffs onto the traitor. With Max's support, the team not only captured the traitor but also dismantled the human trafficking network that Ivan had worked so hard to build. As peace began to return to Hokwood Hills, John looked at Max, his heart full of gratitude. "You're not just a dog. You're our true hero," he said, stroking the golden retriever's head. Max responded with a look of unwavering loyalty. Courage can come from the most unexpected places, and in that moment, it was clear that the love and bravery of an animal could change the fate of an entire community.